Alright, we're going to be doing this buttonhole by hand. This is my little bit of a cheat method. You see, this one I've done first by machine. You can just do that with a rectangle, but my machine has this round there, but you can see it's just a zigzag. The reason I do this is just because it's a little bit faster than doing the whole thing by hand. And also sometimes a bit more secure. The machine zigzag really catches those edges quite nicely so it doesn't end up fraying. And of course, the first thing you're going to do is wax your thread. You see here I'm starting a little bit back from the buttonhole. I'm going to do 3 back stitches on my way to the buttonhole. Obviously just on the back, not showing my stitching on the front side. This is really just tradition. You could start off with a knot here, but then you have a knot there which can be bulky. And you could, do any other shape. You could come straight or whatever. This is just tradition to have 3 coming there, and then when we're done, 3 going out. Then I'm just going to pass back kind of in the middle of that bar tack. Make sure that my threads. So here I'm using a double, which is a bit of a drama, but as long as you waxed your threads, then you're going to be fine. So I'm going to go underneath and pick up. Now this also, the machine stitching gives me a nice guide to stitch on. And I feel that the machine stitching in a way replaces the GIMP, which is also a little bit difficult to work. So I'm going to go from the back using my machine stitching as a guide and then come around the back of the stitch of the needle. So this is actually a blanket stitch. This is not buttonhole stitch. Buttonhole stitch goes underneath and around the front like that. It's just a little bit more complicated, but like I say, this is my quick cheat method that I do so that it can get done a little bit faster. And of course, we always have to be considerate of the price that we're being paid and the amount of time we have to complete this garment. So yeah, I like doing this by machine. It gives me kind of a nice, neat template on which to work. And then I can do my hand stitches a little bit quicker because I don't have to have the GIMP, and I can use a blanket stitch, which is a little bit faster. So I'm just going to continue doing that. Every single stitch you've got to tighten a little bit and make sure that it's just, forming this nice, neat line of knots over there. You want to pull down, you want to pull a little bit up and back. And that's all I can really say. I'm just going to carry on doing that. It's a bit of a gamble between too tight and too loose stitching. Just going to have to get used to the level that you want to be on. And we're just going to keep going around. So this is one of the marks of bespoke, is doing the buttonholes by hand. Obviously, you can do them by machine, but then I would have to go to a place that has that machine. I don't mind paying for it, but the closest place to me is quite far. So, it's better just to do it here in the house. And also, they won't do things exactly how I like. So sometimes, on this garment, it's pretty plain, but sometimes I'll do this machine stitch, a bit of a maybe darker or lighter color, just so I get a bit of a different tone on the buttonholes. Obviously, because we are using 2 threads, it is going to miss a line every now and then. So you just have to be cautious of that. The wax really does help. And we're going to keep going. Now here at the round, I just cut it with a scissor, with a clipper. You can, if you want a really nice, neat round hole, do it with a punch. I do have a punch, but I don't feel it's all that, it doesn't make my life that much more amazing to use the punch. I don't know, maybe I'll change my mind in the future. For now, I just work with a clippers. I feel that's totally okay. And I'm just going to keep going. So see, we're getting that nice, neat, round, it's like straight line of knots there. You can, if you want, going to pull that and then wrap it around like that, and that will already put it behind the stitch for the next stitch, so that you don't have to wrap each time. I don't really like doing that. I don't know why. It just doesn't gel with me. But you know, it will save you a bit of time each time. You don't have to wrap exactly. So here on the round, it's always a little bit of a challenge to get it nice and neat and round. You're just going to face that challenge with strength and fortitude. And you just stitch around. And again, this is where I find my machine stitch nice and useful, because it gives me a good guide. Well, you can see that the machine stitch itself is not, 1000% round. It does get a little bit crazy here and there. So, but again, it just gives me a guide to work on, and I can see where I need to, in a way, fill it in to make it perfectly round. Just always pulling my knots kind of up and back, not to the side. So I don't know what kind of buttonhole stitch you enjoy, what you like, what is fashion for you. But I feel this is a good compromise between the machine zigzag one, which really isn't like on the bespoke level that we need to be on, and doing it completely by hand, which is quite time consuming. And the one thing that I've noticed when I do it by hand, especially if I do a very fine buttonhole, is that it tends to unravel a little bit here on the edges. And I've done so many things. I've done the machine stitching, I've done a bit of like that stop fray stuff, but I keep getting a bit of a fray there. So I end up having to stitch a little bit broader, which is obviously not fashion. So this one I quite like, because then the machine zigzag. And my machine does a buttonhole. It first stitches a very, very tight straight stitch here and around, and then comes back and does the same thing, a very tight straight stitch, then comes back over that with a zigzag. So I feel that really gives me a nice secure edge. I think the advantages of a handmade buttonhole, number one, you can see with the machine, you're always going to get this bit of fray on the inside, which is not very fashion. And you do get machines that will cut that edge first and then do the stitching, but they're not very reliable. Whereas, because we're doing this by hand over that edge, we're able to trap, you can see that you're able to trap all of that fray in the stitching. So it just looks a lot neater. The buttonhole itself, I think, is just more beautiful if you compare the stitching. Here it's just a zigzag, here it's a beautiful blanket stitch. So it's just a little bit more intricate, more fash, more luxury. And yeah, lastly, because we now have the layer of GIMP, or in this case, the machine stitching underneath, you can also get a bit of a play with two colors, which I think you can do by machine, but I think there you can only do a different color top and bottom. You can't have two different colors here on the top. So sometimes I'll do that. Let's say I'm doing a a pinstripe, but the stripe is a navy blue, the fabric is black, then I'll do this machine stitch or the GIMP in a very, very dark navy blue, and then do the stitching over it, this blanket stitch or the buttonhole stitch, in a black. And it's such a subtle difference, but that is bespoke. It's all those subtle, very small details that set the work apart from anything you can buy in the shops. So that's why I do it. That's why we make the fashion. Yeah, so then we just continue stitching and stitching. Nothing too exciting, stitching and stitching. So here I just want to cut off a little bit of this phrase. It's just irritating me a little bit there. Okay. And we keep going. And here, I don't want too many stitches or too few right here at the back. It's always a bit of a gamble. So then I can squeeze, maybe even 2 extra stitches I'm going to squeeze in there. Let me see, I'm going to do 1. I'm going to squeeze 1 more in just for funsies. Right there next to that bar tag. Now before I carry on, I'm just going to take anything and just round that out, just to kind of pull all those stitches where I want them. What has happened there? Did I break those stitches? Oh no, they're just hidden by a bit of the fray. Or did I actually break those stitches off? So tough to tell now. Oh my gosh, I think I broke those stitches off. So, no, let that be a lesson. Don't be too tough. See there, look at that. Actually broke my knots there. Wow. That's never happened before. Maybe don't be too tough with this little guy when you're pulling it this way. Let's go and check all my other buttonholes. That hasn't happened. Yeah, I'm going to come back and fix that in a second. Here, I'm going to see. No, that's fine. So from there, I'm going to go behind my bar tag, kind of in the middle, and then out to the one side. Bring that out. I'm going to go over my bar tag. Now here, you do have the opportunity to do a little bit more fanciness if you so choose. I'm not going to do it for this one. This one, I'm just going over my bar tag once, out the other side. It does get a bit bulky because of all the stitching that's there. So I'm going to go back in here, but what you could do here is stitch another blanket stitch just along that edge. or along the bar tack just for funsies. This one I'm not going to do. I'm just going to pass straight back. Then here, I'm going to again come to the other side of the bar tack, try to get a little bit underneath. I'm going to go around twice and knot that off. So there's my knot along my bar tack. I'm going to do a back stitch underneath and then 3 back stitches going diagonally away. So that is kind of the traditional way of starting and stopping this. So you'll see these little dots going in a diagonal to and away from the buttonhole. So that's what people will look for often if they want to check if you've done your stitching exact. Now, if something like this does happen, to repair, it's a bit of a drama. I'm going to start around here. I'll just come in and I'm going to do the same kind of vibe, 3 back stitches in a row. Then I'm going to come up, not at the back of the buttonhole. You need to now be where the knot is happening. I'm going to come up somewhere in this knot. Here we go. And I'm going to then just work over this piece. Same as how we began. Oh, it's very strange, I'm not sure. Either it hasn't happened before and you are the first witnesses to this new phenomenon, or it has happened before and I just haven't noticed it till now. So yeah, I think be careful of using anything too sharp there to round out this edge. I'm just repairing that. Yeah, I'm just going to go over this section by 1 or 2 stitches just to secure it. Yeah, but there I'm pretty secure. Now to knot off again, we have to go in at the edge of the knot, not at the back of the, not down here, but at the edge of the knot there. And then again, I'm just going to do 3 back tacks. And I do this kind of in line with the buttonhole. So also if your thread has broken or you've run out of thread or whatever, this is how you kind of start on and start off. There we go. So that's that. Obviously we'll trim off all these edges. And there we have it. Look at that. Fashion, baby.